The crimson dawn spilled across the horizon like blood on a wedding dress, as Olivia Tanner clutched what remained of her once glorious auburn hair, tears streaming down her dirt-smudged face. San Andreas, California had been her salvation and her downfall all at once, a mining town that promised fortune, but delivered only heartache in the unforgiving year of 1876. Olivia stared at her reflection in the cracked mirror of the boarding house. The haphazard chunks of hair framed her face in an uneven mess, some parts barely reaching her ears while others brushed her jawline. Her hands trembled as she touched the unfamiliar shape of her head, feeling exposed and vulnerable as never before. "They took everything else," she whispered to her reflection. "Why not my hair too?" 3 weeks earlier, she had arrived in San Andreas with dreams as grand as the California mountains themselves. The daughter of a Boston schoolteacher, Olivia had come west following her fiancé Richard's letters that spoke of gold and prosperity. He'd gone ahead to establish their new life, sending for her when he claimed to have struck a modest vein. But when she stepped off the stagecoach, exhausted from the grueling journey, there was no Richard to greet her. Only whispers and sidelong glances from the townsfolk, who already knew what she would soon discover: Richard had gambled away everything they owned, borrowed heavily from dangerous men, and fled town with another woman just days before her arrival. Left with nothing but debts she hadn't created, Olivia found herself cornered by Richard's creditors. When she couldn't pay, they took her trunk of possessions, her mother's silver locket, even the simple gold band Richard had given her when they became engaged. "A woman's hair is her crown," the largest creditor had sneered yesterday, producing a pair of rusted shears from his coat. "And you ain't deserving of one." The shame of standing in the dusty street while they held her down and cut her hair was a memory that burned hotter than the California sun. The laughter of onlookers, the cold metal of the shears against her scalp, the chunks of hair falling to the ground like autumn leaves, it was a public humiliation designed to mark her as disgraced. A knock at her door startled Olivia from her painful recollection. "Miss, are you still in there?" It was Mrs. Henderson, the boarding house owner. "I'm awful sorry, but if you can't pay by noon, I'll need the room for paying guests." "I understand," Olivia replied, her voice surprisingly steady despite the hollow feeling in her chest. "I'll be gone shortly." She gathered her remaining possessions: a spare dress, a hairbrush that now seemed cruelly ironic, and a small Bible, and wrapped them in a piece of cloth. With nowhere to go, Olivia slipped out the back door of the boarding house to avoid another public spectacle. The morning heat was already building as she walked aimlessly through the bustling town. Miners, shopkeepers, and townspeople went about their business, many stopping to stare or whisper as she passed. She kept her head down, wishing she had something to cover her shorn locks. Her wandering took her to the edge of town where the buildings thinned and gave way to scattered homesteads. The land opened up before her, rolling hills dotted with oak trees and the distant shimmer of the mining operations. Without a plan or destination, Olivia followed a dirt road leading away from town. By midday, the sun beat down mercilessly. Sweat trickled down her neck and her throat felt like sandpaper. In the distance, she spotted a modest ranch house with smoke rising from its chimney. A corral of horses grazed nearby, and a small garden patch suggested someone cared for this place. Desperation and thirst drove her forward. Perhaps they would allow her to draw water from their well. As she approached, a large dog came bounding toward her, barking enthusiastically. Olivia froze, uncertain whether the animal was friendly or threatening. "Bandit, heel, boy," a deep voice commanded. The dog immediately stopped and sat, though his tail continued to wag. From around the side of the house appeared a tall man in dusty work clothes, a wide-brimmed hat shading his face. He walked with the easy confidence of someone comfortable in his own domain. "Can I help you, miss?" he asked, approaching her with measured steps. Olivia's hand instinctively went to her cropped hair, trying futilely to cover it. "I'm sorry to intrude. I was hoping I might trouble you for some water." The man stopped a respectful distance away and studied her. His face was tanned from outdoor work, with lines around his eyes that suggested he smiled often. He appeared to be in his early 30s, with broad shoulders and calloused hands that spoke of hard work. "Of course," he said, gesturing toward the house. "The well's over here." "I'm Kent Grayson, by the way." "Olivia Tanner," she replied, following him toward the stone well. "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Grayson." As Kent lowered the bucket into the well, Olivia became acutely aware of her appearance, her dusty travel dress, her red-rimmed eyes, and most mortifying of all, her butchered hair. She tried to smooth it down, but the uneven chunks refused to cooperate. Kent handed her a dipper full of cool water, and she drank gratefully. As she returned the dipper, their fingers brushed briefly, sending an unexpected tingle up her arm. "Forgive my asking," Kent said, his voice gentle, "but you seem troubled. Are you all right?" The simple kindness in his question nearly undid her. After days of scorn and judgment, compassion was almost more than she could bear. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. "I'm fine," she lied, quickly wiping her eyes, "just passing through." Kent's gaze was steady, and Olivia had the unsettling feeling he could see right through her facade. "Where are you heading?" he asked. The question stopped her short. Where indeed? She had no destination, no plan beyond escaping the humiliation of San Andreas. "I'm not entirely sure," she admitted. A moment of silence passed between them, broken only by the distant whinnying of horses and the gentle rustle of oak leaves. "Miss Tanner," Kent finally said, "I don't mean to pry, but it's a long way to the next town, and you look like you could use a meal and some rest. My sister Martha lives here with me. She'd be happy for the female company, I'm sure. Would you consider staying for supper at least?" Olivia hesitated. Accepting charity went against everything she'd been taught, but her empty stomach and aching feet made a compelling argument. "I wouldn't want to impose," she said weakly. "It's no imposition. Martha always cooks enough to feed an army." Kent smiled, and the warmth reached his eyes. "Besides, Bandit here has taken a liking to you, and he's an excellent judge of character." As if on cue, the dog nudged her hand with his wet nose. Despite everything, Olivia found herself smiling for the first time in days. "Thank you," she said. "I would appreciate that very much." Kent led her toward the modest but well-maintained ranch house. Unlike many of the rough-hewn cabins and shanties that dotted the landscape around San Andreas, this home showed evidence of care and attention to detail. Window boxes held vibrant wildflowers, and a covered porch wrapped around the front, furnished with several handcrafted rocking chairs. Before they reached the door, it swung open to reveal a plump, friendly-faced woman in her late 20s. Her brown hair was swept up in a practical bun, and her apron bore evidence of the day's cooking. "Kent Grayson, were you planning on telling me we had a guest?" she called out, wiping her hands on her apron as she stepped onto the porch. "Martha, this is Miss Olivia Tanner," Kent said, removing his hat as they approached. "Miss Tanner, my sister Martha." Martha's warm smile faltered slightly as she took in Olivia's appearance, her gaze lingering momentarily on the choppy hair before quickly recovering her composure. "Well, it's lovely to meet you, Miss Tanner. You've arrived just in time. I've got a stew that's nearly ready and biscuits in the oven." Olivia's embarrassment at her appearance was momentarily forgotten in the face of Martha's genuine welcome. "Thank you for having me, Miss Grayson. Your home is beautiful. Oh, call me Martha, please, and coming out of this heat." She ushered Olivia inside, chattering as they went. "You look like you could use some freshening up. Would you like to wash before supper?" Before Olivia could answer, Martha was already leading her to a small bedroom off the main living area. "You can use my room. There's water in the pitcher and towels in the chest. Take your time, dear." Left alone, Olivia stared at her reflection in Martha's mirror. The contrast between her ragged appearance and the orderly, peaceful room was stark. Carefully, she washed her face and hands, then attempted to arrange her hair as best she could. The result was still lopsided and unflattering, but at least it was clean. When she emerged, the aroma of hearty beef stew and fresh baked bread made her stomach growl audibly. Kent and Martha were already seated at a wooden table set with simple but clean dishes. Kent stood as she entered, pulling out a chair for her. "Please sit," Martha said, ladling generous portions of stew into bowls. "You look like you haven't had a proper meal in days." Olivia couldn't deny it. "It's been a difficult week," she admitted, accepting the bowl with gratitude. They ate in companionable silence for a few moments, Olivia savoring every bite of the delicious food. It was Martha who finally broke the quiet. "So, Miss Tanner, Olivia, if I may, what brings you to these parts? We don't get many unaccompanied ladies passing through." Kent shot his sister a warning glance, but Olivia appreciated the directness. These people had shown her kindness. They deserved honesty. "I came to San Andreas to join my fiancé," she said, setting down her spoon. "He'd written that he had found success in the mines and was ready to start our life together." Martha leaned forward, her expression sympathetic, but things didn't go as planned. "No," Olivia took a deep breath. "When I arrived, I discovered he had gambled away everything, borrowed heavily from local businessmen, and fled town with another woman." Kent's hand tightened around his water glass. "And I'm guessing these businessmen held you responsible for his debts." Olivia's hand unconsciously went to her cropped hair. "They took everything of value I possessed, and when that wasn't enough," her voice faltered. "They cut your hair," Martha finished softly, her eyes filled with understanding, "to shame you publicly." Olivia nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. "Cowards," Kent said, his voice low and tight with anger. "Only cowards would punish an innocent woman for another man's crimes." "Do you know their names?" Martha asked. "Kent has some influence in town." "No," Olivia interrupted quickly. "I just want to put it all behind me. I have no reason to return to San Andreas." "But where will you go?" Martha asked. It was the question that had plagued Olivia since discovering Richard's betrayal. "I have an aunt in Sacramento," she said hesitantly. "Though we haven't spoken in years, I'm not sure she would welcome me." Kent and Martha exchanged glances, communicating silently in the way of siblings who know each other well. "The stagecoach to Sacramento doesn't come through for another 3 days," Kent said. "You're welcome to stay here until then." "I couldn't possibly," Olivia began. "Nonsense," Martha interrupted. "We have the room, and I could use the company." Kent's a good brother, but his conversation tends toward horses and cattle prices. Kent chuckled, not offended in the slightest. "Martha's right. Besides, I could use some help around the ranch if you're willing to earn your keep. Nothing too strenuous." The offer was tempting, far more appealing than returning to town or trying to make her way to Sacramento without resources. Still, Olivia hesitated. "People will talk if I stay here," she said quietly. "Your reputations, let them talk," Martha said firmly. "We've never much cared what the gossips in San Andreas think, have we, Kent?" Kent shook his head, his eyes fixed on Olivia. "No, we haven't, and we're not about to start now." Something about his steady gaze made Olivia's heart beat a little faster. There was respect in those eyes and something else she couldn't quite name. For the first time since discovering Richard's betrayal, she felt a tiny flicker of hope. "Thank you," she said. "I accept your offer, and I promise I'll work hard to earn my keep." The next morning, Olivia woke to sunlight streaming through the curtains of the small guest room Martha had prepared for her. For a moment, she was disoriented, reaching unconsciously to brush her hair from her face before remembering its absence. The memory of her humiliation threatened to overwhelm her, but she pushed it aside, focusing instead on the kindness she had been shown by the Graysons. After dressing in her spare dress, now wrinkled but clean thanks to Martha's insistence on washing it the night before Olivia made her way to the kitchen, Martha was already there, kneading dough on the wooden table. "Good morning," Martha said cheerfully. "Did you sleep well?" Better than I have in weeks, Olivia admitted. Can I help you with breakfast? You can scramble the eggs if you'd like. Kent's already been up for hours. He starts at dawn most days. He'll be in shortly, hungry as a bear. As they worked side by side preparing breakfast, Olivia found herself relaxing in Martha's warm presence. The woman chattered amiably about local news, the ranch, and her plans for the day's baking, never once mentioning Olivia's predicament or altered appearance. When Kent came in from the morning chores, he brought the scent of sunshine and leather with him. He removed his hat and washed up at the basin, then turned to greet them. His eyes lingered on Olivia for a moment longer than necessary. "Morning, ladies," he said. "Something smells mighty fine." "Just in time," Martha replied, setting a plate of eggs and biscuits on the table. "Sit before it gets cold." Over breakfast, Kent outlined the day's work. "I'll be mending the north fence line today," he said, "and I need to check on a new foal that was born yesterday. I thought perhaps Olivia could help me with preserving some peaches today," Martha suggested, "and maybe we could work on some new clothes for her." Olivia flushed. "You've already done so much nonsense," Martha interrupted. "I have fabric set aside for sewing I never get around to. It'll be a pleasure to put it to use." After breakfast, Kent headed out to tend to his chores while Martha showed Olivia around the property. The Grayson ranch was modest but well-maintained, with a small orchard of fruit trees, a vegetable garden, a chicken coop, and several outbuildings beyond the main house. A stream ran along the western edge of the property, providing water for the livestock and irrigation for the crops. Kent's parents left him the ranch when they passed 5 years ago, Martha explained as they walked. He was barely 25, but he's made it prosper. He raises horses primarily, has a good eye for bloodlines. We get by comfortably enough. "And you came to live with him?" Olivia asked. Martha nodded. "My husband died of fever 3 years ago. We had no children, and Kent insisted I come here rather than live alone. He's got a good heart, my brother." The rest of the morning was spent in the kitchen, where Martha taught Olivia how to preserve the ripe peaches from their orchard. The sweet scent of fruit and sugar filled the air as they worked, and Olivia found herself enjoying the simple, productive task. "You have a natural talent for this," Martha commented as Olivia carefully sealed another jar. Olivia smiled. "My mother taught me to cook, though we never had fresh fruit like this in Boston, mostly root vegetables and whatever could be stored through winter." "Is that where you're from, Boston?" Martha asked, wiping her hands on her apron. "Yes, my father was a shipbuilder, but he died when I was 12. My mother taught school to support us." "And she's still there?" Olivia shook her head, feeling the familiar pang of loss. "She passed last winter. That's when Richard, my fiancé, suggested I join him out west for a fresh start." Martha reached over and squeezed her hand. "I'm sorry about your mother, and about that scoundrel who didn't deserve you." Tears pricked at Olivia's eyes, but she blinked them away. "Thank you. Sometimes I think I was a fool to believe in his promises." "Love makes fools of the wisest among us," Martha said sagely. "But it's also what makes life worth living." After lunch, Martha brought out several lengths of fabric and set up her sewing area on the porch, where the light was good but the shade kept them cool. She took Olivia's measurements and began cutting fabric for a new dress. "Nothing fancy," Martha explained, "but practical for ranch work, and I thought perhaps a bonnet would be nice for when you go to town." Olivia's hand went to her short hair. "A bonnet would be welcome," she admitted. Martha worked quickly, her fingers nimble with the needle and thread. As they sewed together, she regaled Olivia with stories about life on the ranch and the characters in San Andreas. "Kent's quite respected in these parts," Martha said. "He has a way with horses that borders on magical, and he's fair in his business dealings. The only thing people gossip about is his lack of a wife." "Oh," Olivia tried to sound merely conversational. Martha smiled knowingly. "Many local ladies have set their caps for him, but he's never shown much interest. Says he's waiting for the right woman, someone who values substance over appearance, who can appreciate the quiet beauty of ranch life." Before Olivia could respond, they heard hoofbeats approaching. Kent rode into view, leading a magnificent Palomino mare with a tiny foal trotting alongside. "Ladies," he called, dismounting with easy grace, "I thought you might like to meet our newest arrival." The foal was all spindly legs and curiosity, with a golden coat that matched its mother's. As Kent led them closer, the little creature peeked shyly from behind its mother, then boldly approached to sniff at Olivia's outstretched hand. "She likes you," Kent said, his face lighting up with a smile that transformed his features from handsome to breathtaking. Olivia felt a warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the afternoon sun. "She's beautiful," she said, gently stroking the foal's soft muzzle. "What's her name?" "Haven't decided yet," Kent replied. "Any suggestions?" Olivia studied the graceful little creature. "What about Hope?" Kent's eyes met hers, and something unspoken passed between them. "Hope," he repeated softly. "I like that very much." The next 3 days fell into a pleasant rhythm. Olivia woke each morning to help Martha with breakfast before the day's work began. She learned to collect eggs from the temperamental hens, to weed the vegetable garden, and to make cheese from the milk of their 2 dairy cows. In the afternoons, she often accompanied Kent on his rounds of the property, discovering a natural affinity for the horses and developing a deep appreciation for the land. Each evening, they would gather on the porch after supper, watching the sunset paint the hills in gold and crimson. Sometimes Kent would bring out his harmonica and play soft, haunting melodies that seemed to capture the very essence of the western landscape. Other times, they simply talked, sharing stories and dreams as the stars appeared in the darkening sky. By the 3rd day, Olivia had to admit to herself that the thought of leaving for Sacramento filled her with dread. She had found an unexpected peace here on the Grayson Ranch, and an equally unexpected attraction to its owner. Kent's quiet strength, his gentle humor, and his unwavering respect had begun to heal something broken inside her, something that had been damaged long before Richard's betrayal. On the evening before the stagecoach was due, Martha excused herself early, claiming a headache. Olivia suspected it was a transparent attempt to give her and Kent some time alone, but she couldn't bring herself to object. They sat in companionable silence for a while, listening to the chorus of crickets and watching fireflies dance in the gathering darkness. "Will you be glad to reach Sacramento?" Kent finally asked, his voice carefully neutral. Olivia considered her answer. "I'm grateful to have somewhere to go," she said slowly, "but I've come to love it here, the openness, the beauty of the land, the simplicity of the days." "And yet tomorrow you'll leave," Kent said softly. Olivia turned to look at him, finding his eyes already on her, intent and questioning. "I have no right to stay," she whispered. "You and Martha have already done more than enough for a stranger." "You're hardly a stranger anymore, Olivia." The way he said her name sent a shiver down her spine. "In 3 days you've become—" He paused, searching for words. "Important," her heart fluttered in her chest. "Kent, wait," he said, rising from his chair to stand at the porch railing. "Before you say anything, there's something I need to tell you." Olivia held her breath, suddenly afraid of what might come next. "I knew who you were when you arrived that first day," he admitted, his back still to her. "Word travels fast in small communities. I'd heard about what happened in town, how they treated you." A cold weight settled in Olivia's stomach. "You pitied me." Kent turned sharply at that, his expression fierce in the lantern light. "No, I admired you. You walked out of that town with your head high, despite everything. You had every reason to break, but you didn't." He moved to kneel beside her chair, taking her hand in his. "Olivia, I've met women with the finest clothes, the most fashionable hairstyles, all the trappings of beauty, but I've never met anyone with your kind of strength, your dignity, your grace." Tears welled in her eyes as his hand gently brushed her short hair, the touch so tender it made her heart ache. "You're beautiful just like this," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Your hair will grow back, but who you are, that can't be cut away with shears or stolen by small-minded fools." A tear slipped down Olivia's cheek as years of carefully constructed barriers began to crumble. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "Say you'll stay," Kent replied simply. "Not forever if you don't want to. But long enough to see if what I'm feeling, what I think you're feeling too, might grow into something real and lasting." Olivia looked into his earnest face, seeing hope and vulnerability, and something that might, with time, become love. The pain of Richard's betrayal still lingered, but it was fading in the light of this new possibility. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "Not of you, but of trusting again, of believing in promises." Kent nodded, understanding in his eyes. "That's fair. I'm not asking for promises tonight, just time. Stay as Martha's companion, if that makes it easier. Get to know me, let me get to know you, the real you, not just the brave woman who appeared at my well." Olivia thought of Sacramento, of her distant aunt who might or might not welcome her. Then she thought of mornings collecting eggs, of afternoons riding across sun-dappled meadows, of evenings on this porch watching the stars come out one by one. "Yes," she said, her voice growing stronger with each word. "I'll stay, for a while." The smile that broke across Kent's face was like sunrise after the longest night. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers in a kiss that held both promise and restraint, a beginning, not an ending. When they parted, Kent rested his forehead against hers. "Welcome home, Olivia Tanner," he whispered. The changing seasons marked the steady growth of feelings between Olivia and Kent. Summer faded into autumn, painting the hills around the ranch in russet and gold. The full hope grew stronger each day, just as Olivia's confidence and sense of belonging deepened. By Christmas, her hair had grown into a fashionable short style that Martha insisted suited her face perfectly. The town of San Andreas had largely forgotten the scandal of her arrival, especially after Kent began escorting her proudly to church and social gatherings. Richard's creditors kept their distance, perhaps warned off by Kent's quiet but firm conversations with influential townspeople. Olivia learned later that Kent had settled her fiancé's debts himself, not to protect her reputation, but to ensure she could walk freely in town without fear of harassment. On a crisp spring morning, exactly 1 year after she had first appeared at the Grayson ranch, Kent proposed properly, on one knee in the orchard where the peach trees were heavy with fragrant blossoms. The ring he offered was simple but elegant, a small pearl surrounded by tiny diamonds. "It was my mother's," he explained as he slipped it onto her finger. "She always said it should go to the woman who brought light back into this home." Their wedding in June was a joyous affair, attended by nearly everyone in San Andreas. Martha cried happy tears as she stood beside her brother and his bride, and even old Mrs. Henderson from the boarding house came to offer belated but sincere good wishes. As the years passed, the Grayson ranch prospered. Kent's horse breeding business grew in reputation, with buyers coming from as far as San Francisco to purchase his stock. Olivia discovered a talent for bookkeeping and correspondence, helping to expand the business while also establishing a small school on the property for the children of neighboring ranchers. Their own children arrived, first a boy with Kent's steady gaze and Olivia's quick mind, then twin girls who inherited their father's affinity for horses and their mother's determination. The family home expanded to accommodate them all, with Kent adding rooms and Martha supervising the furnishings. On quiet evenings, when the children were asleep and the day's work was done, Kent and Olivia would still sit together on the porch, watching the stars emerge above the California hills. Sometimes she would catch him looking at her with the same wonder he had shown that first night when he told her she was beautiful just as she was. "What are you thinking?" she would ask, leaning into the comfortable strength of his shoulder. "I'm thinking how lucky I am," he would reply, his arm tightening around her. "That the most courageous woman I've ever known happened to walk up to my well on the hottest day of summer." And Olivia, running her hand through her hair now grown long enough to braid, but often worn in the shorter style, she had come to prefer, would smile at the memory of how something meant to shame her, had instead led her to the greatest happiness she had ever known. It wasn't luck, she would tell him, nestling closer. It was hope, and it led me home.